Are you serious?
It's the Morning Rant, live on the Sports Pig app and sportspigradio.com.
And good morning, everyone. It's a great Wednesday, Winging It Wednesday, right here with you on the Morning Rant with Dave Garner. Appreciate you guys being with us. Looking forward to an excellent show over this next hour as we talk about a lot of different things. Of course, Jerks and Profar. What were you thinking? We're going to talk about that coming up here in a couple of minutes. We appreciate you guys being with us. I am here live in studio with one of my co-hosts and somebody that we've talked about for a long time. And over these last couple of days, we've actually talked about him, teased his appearance being here, and I'm so thankful and fortunate to have with me live here inside our Carriage Kia studios, the one, the only, former Gilmer Bobcat, two-time Georgia Tech All-American, and longtime NFL Buffalo Bill, John Davis, joining us right here inside the program. John, man, how you doing this morning?
Doing wonderful, Dave. Thanks for having me.
You know, you and I, when we talked about this, it's been a long time coming, and really, we've talked about this for quite some time, actually. And I'm going to get to the first time that I ever met you that I can remember, and it was a long time ago. But you and I, we kind of had this, we kind of ran into each other last summer, right? We had this moment where I was down in the Marietta Square. You had just wrapped up dinner with your lovely wife, and we kind of ran into each other outside. And you and I got to talking, and you could kind of knew that we were doing something on the radio. There was something happening. You knew that I'd kind of transition, and we kind of started the talks back again about possibly getting together at some point and doing something, and so here we are.
Yeah, I know, and I had been thinking about it for a while too, and of course our relationship does go back quite a ways, and I was telling my wife Hester, I need to get in touch with Dave. I've got a couple of ideas. I'd have obviously no idea what I'm doing, but if there's one person that does, it's you. And so we had that, little sidewalk chat, and a couple of months later, you put things together, and here we are.
Here we are, man. I'm wearing my blue, you have on too. And for those that are again listening right now on the radio, you can't see what John's got on, but he's of course got the Georgia Tech Adidas pullover on, and looking sharp, man, as always. So again, we appreciate you being here. Over this next hour, as we talked about, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Braves, of course, Jerks and Profar with the 162 game suspension that got handed down last night. We're also going to talk about some of our high school basketball teams. We've got a lot of teams. I think we've got, in our listening area, John, I think we've got 7 high school girls teams that are going to be going to the semifinals. We've got some boys teams that are playing in the quarterfinals tonight, so we're going to kind of run down that list a little bit later on in the show for you. We're also going to talk a little bit about, NFL, some of the things that are going on. NIL, one of the things that John and I were talking about was some of the craziness and how the game has changed from when you played, right, obviously, to where it is now. And so those are some things that we're going to talk about over the next few minutes right here on the air. But definitely glad to have you on with us right here. And man, you've had a lot of things going on over the last couple weeks in your life. So
no, it's been wonderful. It's been kind of a whirlwind. We married our fourth child, Julia, on Valentine's Day up in Tunnel Hill, and what a beautiful wedding. Celebrated her and her husband, Luke, and we just, it was a year of planning. It's very tired. The whole group was tired, but the celebration was absolutely wonderful. And just to see her, and what was so amazing, believe it or not, is that she was able to incorporate her mother's dress into the wedding as well. So we took our first dance, and then after that, we were like, we need a break. So Hester's partner in business, he is a captain of boats down in the British Virgin Islands. So we just got back Monday from 7 days down there, and great little trip to kind of decompress, and now we're ready to go.
There we go, man. I love it. Back at the grind here, but no, it sounds like you've had a good time. I've enjoyed some of the pictures you've shared with me, some of the different. I'm like, man, I got to put that on my bucket list for sure. So again, looking forward to that right there. I want to talk because is that there may be a few people, and I say a few. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anyone that really doesn't know who you are, but for maybe a couple of those people out there that don't know who John Davis is, especially if you didn't grow up in kind of the area that we're in right now. I mean, tell us a little bit about your time in Ellijay, kind of growing up in the area, moving on to Georgia Tech, and kind of what that looked like for you growing up in North Georgia.
Well, you said it earlier, the times have changed.
Right.
And, obviously I came back, Dad retired from the Air Force, came back to Ellijay in 1975, immediately got involved in the sports scene. Had a great career up there. One of my best friends and mentors that I love so much is Lex Rainey, who was our principal.
Oh, yeah,
and I still get to see him all the time, and his wife Ann, and so many memories from Ellijay. I really feel like that town shaped who I was.
Right.
And it helped a lot because Mom and Dad owned a restaurant. And so when I wasn't playing sports, I was at the restaurant, either busting tables, washing dishes, you name it.
Yeah.
I was doing that. So you always had to be on your game and make sure that you kept your nose clean and stuff. And so I got to go through that. And then you graduate. I'm fortunate enough to go down to Georgia Tech. That was a little bit of a contentious time because, as we know, Ellijay and Gilmer County, they're big Georgia fans, and I think Georgia and Tech recruited me since really the spring of my freshman year is when it started, and so it's it came to a time to where a lot of coaches would be coming through the restaurant, and you would see a lot of people, Tennessee, Clemson, Alabama, Auburn, you name it, and I finally made the choice that I felt was right for me because my ultimate goal at the end of the day was to be able to play in the NFL.
Absolutely,
and I felt like Georgia Tech gave me that best opportunity to do that, and it's a decision that I will never regret because
right.
I bleed Georgia Tech, and I love the school. Had I think what was a pretty good career, and move on to Houston Oilers for a couple of years.
So you're drafted by Houston.
I was drafted by the Houston
Originally,
Oilers originally, and spent 87 and 88 there, and then had a chance to go through Plan B free agency via Reggie White. He's the one who spearheaded that, and so I spent the next 6 years in Buffalo. It could have either been Detroit or Buffalo. We chose Buffalo, and as they say, the rest is history. We went on that 4-year run for the Super Bowls, and it's just Buffalo is a great town. It's a great sports town, and I got my 8 years in, and I couldn't do it anymore, and then moved back to Ellijay.
I noticed you've got a ring on today. Is that what?
That's
ring?
one of the. That's the ring that I'm wearing now is the one in Pasadena where Dallas beat us pretty good. And I was coming back from an injury. I didn't play a whole lot that game. I was coming back from major knee surgery, but I like that. And I have to be honest, I've lost my 4th ring. I do think it's somewhere in the house. I just don't. I don't know.
It's just not within eyesight
exactly
right now.
Exactly.
But,
But that's the one that means the most to me because I got to come back home. We practiced at Georgia Tech. The Super Bowl was in Atlanta, and got to see a lot of family and friends. But no, it was a great run, and I'm very appreciative of the 8 years that I had. And it's just a lot of as you get a little bit older, you start the memory starts checking in, and you relive a lot of those days. But it was I was very blessed to be able to do that.
And we're gonna take a trip in segment 2 down memory lane and maybe talk about some of the things that stand out about your career in the NFL, and then that'll kind of transition us into the way things look now, particularly going back into college with the NIL. There's a lot of different things going on with that, and so I'm kind of interested to kind of hear your take about that from someone who's been there and done that.
Sure.
I mean, I suited up in high school, was not a very good football player, walked on in college, had no business being on a college football field, but even I can see how the game has changed, and it's trickled all the way down to the D2, the D3 level, NAI, you name it. So it's not just at the big levels there. I want to talk about it's funny because when we ran into you over the summer, this past summer, my wife, she's not starstruck very easily. Like, she's not somebody that is impressed, by much. But her dad, you got to understand, like I told you, grew up in East Aurora, right outside of Buffalo, was a huge Buffalo Bills fan. The family ended up, he packed up, met her mom, in college, and they ended up moving, got a job as a professor in Kentucky, ended up in Bowling Green at the University of Western Kentucky, where he was the chair of the history department there. So my wife was born in Kentucky, grew up in Bowling Green her whole life, but was a huge, for whatever reason, was a huge Buffalo Bills fan. Didn't even understand the fandom, but as she grew older, she understood what that meant. And then, of course, her dad passed away during the COVID year. And so, she's always, especially ever since then, she's been just a huge Buffalo Bills fan. And I always say that I married into the mafia because I feel like I have. So I've adopted, of course, the Bills as one of my favorite teams there. But last summer when we ran into you on the sidewalk down to the Marietta Square, I kind of had to stop her because she was walking. And I said, "Oh, wait a minute, that's my buddy John. Like, I gotta say hey to John Davis." And I was trying to explain to her because I had talked about you before to her. And so when she realized who you were, when I said, this is John Davis, this is the Buffalo, and she, like, her eyes lit up. I mean, her eyes got so huge, and she was just like, that's the one that was like there that played with Jim Kelly, that was there during all the Super Bowls and everything. It's like, yeah. And in that moment, that is the most starstruck I've ever seen her. Whenever we ran into you that day. Wow. So again, so she was just like, "Oh, can we take a picture?" She never wants to take a picture with anybody. I can tell you that. But she wanted to take a picture with you. So that meant a lot to her to be able to see you. And so again, there's a lot of the one thing I have learned about Atlanta, and as you know this, John, I mean, Atlanta is kind of a melting pot for a lot of different fan bases. But for whatever reason, there are a lot of Buffalo Bills fans in Atlanta.
Well, the last 6-7 years that they have been doing well, you're seeing more and more flags. There's a couple in our neighborhood and then some down the street from us. Us in Pittsburgh. Whenever they're doing well, those are the two flags that you see the most. But,
right.
I mean, the mafia is everywhere. I think there's about 15, 16 bars that they have that they can go and watch on Sundays. And
right.
So it's really neat. They're just salt of the earth, and I enjoy getting out and being able to visit with them whenever I get out to a game on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did have Terrible Towel Tuesday in here yesterday because of the Sports Pig towels that we've got, and so we're gonna have to change it though to Rally Towel Tuesday because we don't want to represent the Steelers too much. But again, we're definitely going to be bringing in some Buffalo Bill talk, certainly with Big John Davis, and we appreciate you guys listening. And once again, we are your home for ESPN Radio in North Georgia with the official North Georgia home of the Atlanta Braves. The newest affiliate is right here. It lives on the dial at 93.7 and 98.1, but more than that on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com. We are also the home of NASCAR. You can hear every Cup race right here on the weekends. Right now we're running Georgia basketball. As we mentioned, I was talking to John earlier, we're the home for Tennessee and Georgia Tech football. So we have a lot of moving parts here at the Sports Pig, and that's what we say is that the Sports Pig is like it's like a trough of sports. So the namesake is very appropriate for all the different entities that we have moving in here. And so we're excited to have you guys with us as well. Let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk to John. We'll take a trip down memory lane. We'll talk some NIL. We'll jump into the whole Jurix and Profar debacle. We can't have anything nice in Atlanta. It's the Morning Rant here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia and on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Big opinions of the big games from the big mouths.
Man, I think it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's the Morning Rant on WPGY, the Sports Pig, North Georgia's home for ESPN Radio.
Sit down.
And welcome back to the program. Dave Garner in with you till 11 o'clock. Chuck Oliver coming up at 11. He'll go from 11 to 1 right here on the Sports Pig. Again, home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. I'm here with my co-host, John Davis. Again, Big John Davis, former Buffalo Bill, joining us here live inside the studio. And appreciate him, of course, being with us. And looking forward, man, to this run as we talked about, is interesting. Really, the first thing that brought you and I together as we talk a little bit and kind of take a trip down memory lane is the fact that I remember I was working for a TV station down in Canton Georgia, of all things, that it's no longer there. It's now a Comcast, but there was a local TV station in Canton for a number of years before I moved a little bit further north. And I remember you and Gina Penley specifically coming to the TV station to promote the golf tournament for the Georgia Mountains Hospice, which is an organization that you've been very involved in over the years, and your golf tournaments you've been going for a long time now. So, I mean, what year are we getting ready to?
Well, I believe it's 33. It could be 34. I'm not mistaken.
I was going to say we'll have to try to feel, but regardless, it's been a lot.
I'm sure I'll get a call from Gina afterwards. But it's funny how that ended, because when I had a chance to play in the NFL, Hester and I always wanted to figure out a way that we could give back to the community, and so the story goes back to where I guess the fertilizers and stuff that they used for the farms and everything back in the 40s and 50s. It was a cancer, you were seeing more and more cancer patients and things like that. And I had noticed that I went to, I don't know if it was Gina, I think it was a nice lady named Kay Miller. Went to her and her group. I think it used to be called Northwest Georgia Home Health. And I asked him, I said, what do you need? We feel led to give back. And they came back and said, we need a hospice.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, this is what we're going to do on my end. We went out, and I was just reminded by Gina, I think we raised a little over $60,000 that initial tournament. And it's gone on from now. We've raised about $1.2 million. Yeah. And for North Georgia, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah,
and,
very good.
We've got a large fan base. I'm getting more and more people coming up from Atlanta. Of course, I've got all my friends in LJ and a lot of friends here in Jasper that participate. That I get, sometimes one time a year that I do get to see everybody.
Right, absolutely.
Because I don't get back home that much. But no, it's just we've been blessed with it. It's the only, not the only, but one of the one of the few nonprofit hospices in the area.
Yeah,
I think it covers about 7 or 8 counties, if I'm not mistaken. And Gina and her team have done an absolute phenomenal job with it. And we're getting ready to get started with this year's tournament, which it's always on the first Wednesday of January or June.
Yep.
And so we're looking for another big field and an opportunity to. It's all about raising the money.
Yeah,
is what
absolutely.
It's all about.
Right, and keeping it going. It's such a great organization. I can tell you just from a personal standpoint. And I was going to say, I want to say you guys were maybe a couple years in to the golf tournament by the time I met you. So I've probably been around for almost 30 of them, I guess, or somewhere around in there, I think, at that point. So, again, Georgia Mountains Hospice, a great organization. They do a lot here. They do, I know, the Mardi Gras on the Mountains event they're part of. And so there's a lot of different things that they do in the local area. Again, here with Big John Davis, former Buffalo Bill, Georgia Tech two-time All-American, and Gilmer Bobcat. And now let's take a trip down memory lane. John, you were talking when you came in this morning. We were talking about, just some of the different stories. And, of course, our owner, Darren Sutherland, came walking in. You guys were chopping it up, talking about some different things. But give us one kind of a tease story. I mean, one story you can tell us about your time, whether it be in college or in the NFL, because you've got so many stories. And that's why I'm looking forward to you being on the show, every week in some capacities, because you have so many things that are interesting, I think, for listeners out there that would want to know, man, what was it like actually being in the trenches? Because there's a lot of people that are Monday morning quarterbacks, right? I mean, they can look at it, sports talk guys like me or whatever, they can sit here and say, it was terrible, this, that, and the other, whatever. But what's really going on here? And you're a guy that obviously knows the game and knows what's going on. So throw out a little nugget for us out there today.
I think quickly, if I could just say this one story, not so much about a ball game, is that I think where it kind of changed my life a little bit was my freshman year. I knew the one thing that I loved about Bill Curry was that he never promised me a thing.
Yeah.
And I can't say that for the rest of the schools, but he never promised me one thing except for an opportunity.
Right.
And when I got there, I felt like I assessed the program. And that's one of the reasons why Warren Sellers is such a great friend of mine, because he can assess talent.
Right.
And we would talk and we would just look and see. And I assessed the talent, and I said, I can play now.
Yeah.
And, long story short, they put me down with the with the scout team during training camp, and I didn't take too kindly to that. So I worked my way back up. Got hurt, didn't play the first 2 games. The third game we played against Clemson as a freshman.
Yep.
And then the coaches had to make a decision. Back at that time, they would have to make a decision on after the third game whether they were going to redshirt you or not. Calls me in, says they're going to redshirt me. I nodded, got up, walked out, called my dad, said, Dad, call Tennessee. I'm not playing for Georgia Tech. They want to redshirt me. I know I can play. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I know that I'm one of the best 5 offensive linemen.
Right.
And that's just how I felt.
Yeah.
I'm not being cocky.
You got to have the
confidence.
confidence. I mean, at that level.
That's how I felt during that time.
Right.
Dad says, don't pick up the phone. We'll get back to you. And I never get in trouble with Bill Curry. I mean, it's just like there's a big sign that says John Davis see Bill Curry. And I'm like, oh, geez, what have I done now? That was on a Sunday. Didn't answer the phone, didn't do anything, and I was just fuming the whole night. Monday morning, I go into breakfast before class, and it says, John Davis, see Bill Curry. And I'm like, well, I know I didn't do anything wrong because I stayed in my room the whole time. And I walked in, and we sat down, and that's when he and my coach, Matt McWhorter, said that I would be starting the fourth game of the season against North Carolina.
Oh my
and
goodness.
that was totally unexpected because I'd like to make sure people understand. It wasn't a power play. It was more of, I know I can play. I know,
yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
So, and I felt that strong about it, and it worked out. And, my freshman year, I played against 6 All-Americans. And talking about Reggie White, William Fuller, Eddie Meat Cleaver Weaver, the guys, Ben Thomas down at Auburn, and I was thrown into the fire, but I think I came out on top, and we moved on.
How did you get the nickname Refrigerator Mover? You got to tell that story too, right?
It was building up my sophomore year. That we all know who William Perry is,
right? The Refrigerator, the Chicago Bears,
and great defensive lineman. And
was it Clemson?
Clemson, and I was getting tired of hearing his name, and it was one of those irritating weeks that you have.
Yeah.
And Dave Kindred was a sports writer for Atlanta back in the day, and we go out. And, again, I make sure that I let everybody know it wasn't me and William. It was, I always give credit to Tony Capano and John Thomas and John Ivanmeyer and those guys, because that was a whole collective opportunity game for us to do well. It just so happened, you got Refrigerator, who was 380.
Exactly.
And I'm 315, and so we're butting heads and going after it the whole game. We end up winning on the last drive of the game, and I wake up the next morning, and Dave Kindred wrote this article, and it is amazing. He comes out, he says, the refrigerator has been born, mover has been born, or something like that. And one quick story about that is my best friend Bill Fincher has a tailgate right by the stadium. Dave, I would venture to say 90% of the people that walk by don't know my name, but they know who the refrigerator mover is.
They do know that, yeah.
And I'm just like, that tickles me.
And you've leaned into that, obviously, with some of your,
I mean, that's, West Durham came out and said, there's not many people in this country that you can give a nickname and you don't know who they are.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm very proud of that, and people know me by that. And so, I'm going to lean on it.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
My daughter, Olivia, made me a shirt last year when we played Clemson. And it was a white shirt, and then in gold it says, I am the refrigerator mover.
I am the refrigerator mover. I love it. I love it.
You should have seen the people on the streets going into the stadium. They loved it. And it's just another chance for me to reconnect.
Yeah, there's nothing better than having a T-shirt made, after and
Exactly.
people understanding what it is. So I had a similar, way at a minor league compared to that. But it's funny because I've done play-by-play at Valdosta State for the last several years, and so immediately after the games, we jump into the coaches show, and which is hard for the coaches because the game just ended, right? And we're setting up down to the field because it's easier to do it, instead of waiting over the weekend and traveling this, that, and the other. So I get in this bad habit, and you guys probably know it if you've listened enough, where I say the word absolutely a lot. Like after a question or whatever, you say something, I'll say, oh, absolutely, And so it kind of caught on during the coaches show that I kept saying that. So and I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want to promote alcohol necessarily on the air, but they had a T-shirt that they made that the coaches and the production staff made in my honor. That's actually like an Absolute vodka bottle. It's shaped in a bottle, and it says "Absolutely" across it, and the label is made to look like the bottle, but it says, Valdosta State, blah, 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 the coach's show, Dave Garner. So it's kind of funny to have that T-shirt because Coach came walking in with it, one day before a game. I was like, oh, my gosh. Yeah. So it's fun to have those situations like that. Very good. So, yeah, definitely. But I want to transition and talk a little bit about, because there's some legislation real quick. We're up against our second break. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it real quick. The state of Mississippi, actually has some legislation that they're trying to pass that says they're not going to tax NIL money for college athletes. And that's would be a big win in the state of Mississippi for programs obviously like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, even the Southern Misses of the world, for example. So I kind of want to get your thought today as we kind of talked on it. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about it after the break. But just your initial thought about just NIL in general, and how it looks to you and how it's changed the game.
Well, I think we've gone through the several phases of how we accept NIL, in a way you're jealous about it because you would have wished that it would happen back when you played.
Right.
I think it's great for the kids. I think, within reason, I think the numbers have gotten out of control. But if the alumni have the money, if the schools have the money, then they're going to spend it. I think what it turns into, and I've got some numbers that we'll talk about when I come back, but it's a matter of, who's going to buy the championship.
Right, yeah.
It's where the money is coming from, and it's astronomical that what these kids are making. And, the no tax, hey, that's fine. The more money that you could put in the kid's pocket. I think there's got to be a group of humans that can just sit down in a room and say, look, this is out of control. Let's set the parameters of something that is going to work for everybody.
Right.
And
that makes sense.
I don't care what people say. Your offensive lineman's going to be mad at your quarterback for making this money.
Right,
running back's going to be mad at the wide receiver. And in a way, what happens is it does promote competition, but the other problem is that that's always on your mind and it's distracting you from playing football.
Right, exactly.
Going to school and playing football, which, listen, education's the very first, most important part, but you still represent a school. But when you have that money aspect on it and you're mad going into Saturday because so-and-so's getting $50,000 more than you are, then I don't care what anybody says. These kids are 18 to 22. It's going to affect their mentality.
I can totally see that. Absolutely,
and their plays and their plays going to get
right.
Now. I think at the end of the day, it needs to be performance based.
Right.
Now
that would make sense. It's like it isn't a normal job.
Well, I heard the story about Kirby Smart, and I believe, and I could be wrong if you've heard it, but his defensive linemen want to play every game or play every play of the game. He's like, dude, you stop the run, I'll give you a chance to rush the quarterback.
Okay.
You don't stop the run, you're going to be on the sideline.
Right. You'll
play first and second down, but you're not going to play third down.
Right.
And so why do you think they're so good? And
look
at Alabama and those
exactly.
Ohio State and those schools. That's performance-based football.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's got to be that in the transfer policy. There's got to be something that's got to sit down. I know that they said before we leave, they've said that, put Nick Saban in there. In the plans that I have heard, not all of them, but they said that Nick's got a really sensible plan that he can sit down with everybody and say, look, this is what's good. Because we want everybody to win. We want everybody to participate. Because what's going to happen at the end of the day is that you're going to have 20 teams. Mm-hmm. And then team 21 to 130, right. Okay, you're just going to be a fans. But you're going to have any day, with the amount of money that's out there right now, any team in the top 20 could possibly win the national championship.
You're right.
Whereas
Absolutely.
years ago, we know that
it wasn't going to happen like that, right? Yep. Hot takes, hot mics right here on the Morning Rant. We'll take our second time out. We're already halfway home. We'll be back. We'll talk a little bit more about NIL, and I promise we'll get to the whole Jurickson Profar debacle with the Atlanta Braves. All that and much more coming up next right here on the Morning Rant. We're your home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
We bring the heat. You bring the trash talk.
Come on, man. Are you serious?
It's the Morning Rant, live on the Sports Pig app and sportspigradio.com.
And welcome back to the program. Dave Garner in with you till 11 o'clock this morning. Again, Chuck Oliver from 11 to 1 right here on the Sports Pig. Again, your home for ESPN Radio in North Georgia. We are your trough of sports, man. We got, again, a little bit of everything. You know, we talked about it, of course, partnering with the Atlanta Braves. We're partnering with Atlanta United. We've got soccer, of course, coming up, a big home match this weekend, the World Cup, of course, on deck. So a lot of eyes are going to be on Atlanta over the next couple months as we get set to kind of transition into the world stage there. You and I were talking about NIL before the break. I want to talk about the Atlanta Braves for just a moment. The big story that hit yesterday after we got off the air was Jurickson Profar, of course, facing 162-game suspension. That suspension getting handed down yesterday afternoon by Major League Baseball. Now, again, he does have a chance to appeal, but John, this is kind of disappointing considering that last year he missed 80 games due to again being suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. This seems like it's a story that kind of just continues no matter where we're at with, you know, NIL, sports, leagues, whatever. It always seems like things come back to the whole, you know, PED type thing or whatever, particularly with baseball. And you would think, now I don't know all the details, you would think that, you know, he would know better, you know, after missing half the season last year. And then all of a sudden right here in spring training, the Braves are already, you know, trying to find some good news. They've already had some injuries that have hit a little bit in spring training, and now you get this news right here that's going to kind of completely shuffle your lineup a little bit if you're the Atlanta Braves. I mean, what do you make of this whole Profar thing and this whole PED thing?
So I'm going to plead ignorance, and I'll tell you why. I don't know who this young man is, but what I will say about the PEDs and things like that, these guys are making the money today to where they have agents, they have trainers, they have doctors,
dietitians,
dietitians, they have weight trained staff. You can't tell me that it slipped through 5 different hands that he would get caught with this. Now, look, I know that there's a lot of medicine that's out there, hormones and things like that, that the Major League Baseball is supposed to, you know, talking about the NFL as well, they give you a list of banned substances, and that should have been on there. Now, whether or not we're going to find out he gets to appeal it, in which we hope that it, you know, we hope that it is a mistake. But in today's world, when you're making that much money and you have those resources available to you, you should never get suspended from doing something like that.
I agree, absolutely. And again, more is going to come out about it. The appeal happened, but here's the thing: he's a second offender at this point, multiple offender. So again, it's a standing suspension, which means he's not going to be eligible to play. Friday, basically, he has to come off the field type of thing. He won't be allowed back on unless he wins his appeal. So it's not one of those things where you can, you know, send an appeal and yet you still get to play, you know, to start the season until the appeal comes down. It's not one of those things, right? So again, he's pretty much done unless he wins the appeal.
Well, and the one difference that I'll say between the NFL and Major League Baseball, in the NFL, you can't miss a year. Very, very, very rarely, unless you're an exceptional athlete. Now, I'm not saying that he's not. In baseball, there's a lot more forgiveness because there's a lot of baseball players in there, and you're always looking for that one little spark, whether it's coming off of the bench. You know how bad the injury bug is after the All-Star break or even before, but, you know, especially at the end of the season. So he's going to get another opportunity. We can hope that he can pass, you know, and get through this, but, you know, who I guess what we find out Friday or in the next couple
I think
of
we
days.
find out the next couple of days.
And you know, I'm sure the manager's, you know, scratching his head, but the thing that I have learned is they forget about it because they got to move forward. You know, opening season's 3 weeks or whatever, and so he's got to put that team together. You know, he's mad, but he's like, nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, big obstacle again for first-year manager Walt Weiss, and it will change the lineup a little bit. I think that Profar was more projected to be a DH, more so that he was an everyday left fielder. I think Yastrzemski has really come on in that spot. I think that Yaz will be probably your opening day left fielder. Would have been probably regardless, but I think it definitely changes your order around a little bit. Obviously, not having Profar in there as a DH, which I know is where he was expected to go. Of course, with them moving on, obviously, from the other DH, they had there. So again, it's a situation where it's unfortunate, but again, the good thing about it is the silver lining. I think for the Braves, you're in spring training, you have some time to tweak the lineup and play with it. You're not in the season yet.
And I also think one more thing might come into play is that there might be some guys down at AAA that Walt wants to keep down there to get some playing time and not have to bring them up if he had. You see
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? I think he would like for them to get down there and maybe get 30, 40, 50 at bats and get some field time before he brings them up, because that's how they're thinking. They're always looking down there, and he's like thinking, man, this guy, he's good, but if we could get him those 30 to 40 at-bats, then we get him acclimated to it and then bring him up, whereas now he might have to bring one or two up to fill that, fill that space.
And there's some good competitions going on in spring training right now for some of the last roster spots. There's like really 3 or 4 guys that's kind of narrowed it down, and we're going to talk about that a lot over the next couple of days. We're going to break down Braves spring training. Again, we are the home for the Atlanta Braves here on Sports Pig Radio again, and so you're going to be able to hear a majority, if not all the games, a majority of the games right here on the Sports Pig between here and our sister station, 101.1 The Pulse. You'll be able to hear all 162, so we're excited about the Atlanta Braves. Hey, speaking of things to be excited about, high school basketball. Man, I tell you what, we've got a bunch of teams that are going to be taking part in the semifinals over the next couple of days, and I wanted to run down the list. We did this a little bit yesterday, but several of our local area, high schools basically making it to the big dance, man. Murray County, I want to congratulate the Lady Indians of Murray County in 2A. They will play on Friday at 5 p.m. over in Douglasville. Also, congratulations in 3A to the Pickens High Dragonettes. They will also play in Douglasville, but their matchup is Saturday at 5 p.m. They'll be taking on Heritage Catoosa, which is another area school here in North Georgia, so that ought to be a great matchup. Also want to send our congratulations out to Cartersville. They're in the semifinals. They'll be over in Athens, and then Kell as well in Cobb County. They advanced to the semifinals there. In 5A down at Georgia State, a couple of Cherokee County teams, Creekview and River Ridge. River Ridge, the defending state champs in 5A, taking on Creekview, so you're going to have Cherokee County against Cherokee County in 5A down at Georgia State on Friday at 5 p.m. And then in the 6A bracket, our friends at North Paulding High School, the girls there, they will play on Saturday at 5 p.m. at Georgia State. So again, everything's really moved around a lot. Boys tonight, North Cobb Christian Heritage out of Dalton, and Fannin County, the Rebel Boys still in it, as well as Calhoun, the Yellow Jackets taking on East Hall tonight with a chance to get into the state championships, which begin next Wednesday down in Macon. All of the state championship games basically at the old Macon Coliseum, which is where they have traditionally been a lot over the years. And so again, we want to congratulate all of our local area high schools. And man, John, I tell you what, I know you're a former Gilmer Bobcat. A lot of heavy tradition with girls basketball, especially along this Highway 515 area with Gilmer, Pickens, Fannin. A lot of these North Georgia schools, man, those girls get after it.
Well, yeah, and I wish I could remember the coaches for Fannin. I know Herb Horton was a fantastic
Johnny Farmer,
coach.
I believe.
Farmer, and then
Roy Cowart
Roy
at Pickens.
Cowart here at Pickens. So you're looking at 515, and those were scraps. I mean, those girls played hard, and it's the rivalry makes it that much more intense. Of course, back then we had White County, Union County, Lumpkin County, Dawsonville, Murray, or Raven County in our conference, our region. And again, that just brings up memories of how good of a girls basketball team there was for a long stretch with Herb Horton, and again with Coward and Farmer as well, which was a lot of fun to watch. It's great to see these girls in there, because this is it's a something that they won't forget, and
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for them to keep working for a championship.
Absolutely, and I'm sure out of the, 11 or so remaining teams here in North Georgia, there's, of course, really more than that, but particularly in our regional area, because we don't like to say the word local. Again, we're not a local radio station. We're a regional radio station, but we do have a lot of high schools within our coverage area, and so I'd say we got almost a dozen or so that have a good chance of making it to the state championship. We know at least one team in Cherokee County will, because there's 2 Cherokee County teams playing each other on Friday down at Georgia State, so one of them, either Creekview or River Ridge, is going to be in the state championship. A lot of fun. Hey, we're up against our final break right here on the Morning Rant. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to take another 2 minutes and then come back with our final segment of the morning as we jump back into some NIL and college talk right here on the Morning Rant. We are the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Morning Grind with Pork Rinds.
Welcome to the show.
It's the Morning Rant, weekday mornings from 10 to 11 on 98.1, 93.7, and 101.1 on the H2 dial. WPGY, the Sports Pig.
And welcome back to the program. Dave Garner, John Davis sitting in with you here during the Morning Rant. At 11 o'clock, again, our friend Chuck Oliver takes over from 11 to 1, and then it's back to ESPN programming with Rich Eisen from 1 to 3 this afternoon, and Paul Feinbaum from 3 to 7 right here on the Sports Pig, home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. All right, John, again, back at it right here in our final segment. We're going to jump back into some NIL discussion and everything here in just a moment. But, pro talk as well, of course, the combine going on right now, getting ready for the NFL draft. I mean, a lot of different things, of course, getting set to take off here in the next few weeks, a month or so. And there's even talk of Atlanta getting hockey. They're trying to repurpose North Point Mall, a lot of different things there. So who knows, man? Maybe we'll have another professional franchise here before long.
I don't see how it doesn't work, because Atlanta's such a diverse city that when the team comes in, yes, it might be 50-50 fans as far as who shows up, but Atlanta should have a hockey team without a doubt. And and I'm finally, knock on wood, I looked yesterday, and the Sabres are second in their conference.
There we go.
So they've completely turned that franchise around. So it's been exciting to watch them a little bit more. Yeah,
a lot of news, of course. The World Baseball Classic also getting set to take place. We were just talking about the whole Profar situation with the Atlanta Braves. I think a lot of the USA Baseball lineups looking pretty stout. I mean, Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, some of those guys, you can't go wrong at the top of your lineup. They're actually doing some exhibition games against some of the other major league teams, like they had the San Francisco Giants, I think, yesterday. I think the Braves are going to the Braves are going to kind of line up against the World Baseball USA team, and so a few exhibitions, but that bracket starts, I think, here in the next couple of days, so that'll be interesting to watch. Of course, we're coming off the Olympics. We talked about, of course, our high school basketball teams earlier. March Madness is going to be something that's going to be starting to hit here as we get close into the conference tournaments. Georgia got a big win last night over Alabama in a game that you heard right here on the Sports Pig, and what a big win for them, as they're you kind of feel like maybe one of those bubble teams at this point. And of course, NASCAR, Chandler Smith, as we talked about yesterday, the Talking Rock product going to moonlight in the O'Reilly Series for the next couple of races. He's currently leading the truck standings right now in the points, and so again, Chandler going to do double duty over the next couple of weeks between the truck series and, of course, the O'Reilly Series as well. And again, so a lot of things going on here. You're going to want to tune into the Sports Pig and particularly the Morning Rant from 10 to 11 Monday through Friday, as we talked about over the next couple of days. We're going to really dive into our Atlanta Braves talk about this lineup. What chance do the Braves have this year of making noise? How do you feel so far about the team? And the way things are going, I think the biggest thing, obviously, right now folks are watching is just that starting rotation. How's that going to look? So, again, a lot of things coming up on the horizon over the next couple of days right here on the program and, of course, right here on the Sports Pig. All right, John, let's get back to some talk. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, some of the, the NIL, how the game's changed. I kind of want you to be able to expand on that talk a little bit here and kind of finish some thoughts that we had from our second segment today as far as NIL, how it's changed the game. And so you seem to kind of be I know there's a lot of people that are on the fence a lot of different ways about it, but you seem to be in favor of it. The more money these kids can make, I guess the better off
well,
for them,
well,
right?
it's here to stay. That's
Yeah,
the
right.
so you either have to love it or like it or not. You talk to Coach Curry quite often about it, and of course he doesn't like the trajectory of the way it's going. So that goes back into trying to get somebody that's got some common sense to get some people in the room to make it work. But I know these numbers are wrong. I'm probably a little bit low right now, but I've got Texas, Ohio State, LSU. Probably Alabama, Oklahoma, all over $20+ million. Could even be higher than $30 million.
Right.
Just read an article the other day where SMU has raised $50 million initially, and they're going to by the spring or by the summer will have raised another $50 million.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
have no idea why the national championship champion from NCAA does not come out of Texas, because all you
Yeah.
got to do is go, dig an oil well. And
I was going to say, you would think, yeah,
with the money that is out there. But then you go back and you look at Indiana, and I think at the end of the day, you have got to put 11 people on the field. That is, football is the only sport, and I'll debate this with you any day. Football is the only sport that if all 11 people doesn't do their job right, something's
Yeah.
going to go wrong.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and Indiana gave you the model last year, and
Yeah.
a lot of these other schools did, but Indiana, to see how that team played, and they did it all up front too. They had the great quarterback, but as an offensive lineman, you love to watch offensive linemen and defensive linemen go at it in a disciplined fashion,
Right.
and move people off of the ball. Don't shield them, but move them off. You got Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech's probably sitting somewhere between $5 and $7 million, and I'm sure that's going to be going up some with the distribution of money with the networks and everything. But if $20 million, and when you're paying your players that kind of money, again, I think it should go back to performance based, but. It just, to me, it just is like you're buying a championship.
Right, exactly.
And hope that all the pieces come into play.
And you said something at the top that makes a lot of sense. Regardless, and I've talked to coaches about this, regardless of how you feel about it, it's here to stay.
Right.
And so you can either get on the train or not, but it's here. It's not going anywhere. So, I don't have a problem with what Indiana did, for example, because those are the rules that we're playing under.
Right.
And as long as you're playing within those rules now, again, you're able to do that. And they took advantage of it. Kurt Signetti and those guys, they brought a lot of those kids from JMU that were organic, but a lot of the other ones they filled in through the portal. And so, again, if you're not living in the portal, if you're not living in the NIL world, you're seeing what's happening with the Dabo Swinneys of the world and some of those that are kind of, where the programs are kind of falling behind because they're not able to keep up with that.
Well, and Dabo probably thought that he could do it his way, and we know that that's not going to work.
Right,
What Signetti did. So what he did was he brought a lot of pissed off kids from JMU because they weren't recruited at higher schools, and then they had a chance to go and showcase their talents at Indiana, and you look and see what happens. That's why in my lifetime I hope we never schedule a school from the directional schools in Michigan or the Miami of Ohio's or people like that, because these are kids that are mad because they're not at Indiana, they're not at Michigan, they're not at Ohio State, and they got a chip on their shoulder. You don't gain anything by playing those kids, because 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, you're going to lose. And I'll say one more thing. If they don't, NIL's here. There's nothing that we can do about that right now. We can do something about the transfer portal. This going to 5 different schools in 7 years or ever getting an extra year because you had a tooth pulled and you had to miss 2 games or whatever. I've just heard so many stories that are out there. They've got to get a grip on the transfer portal because it's just – I just don't. Maybe it does, but I just don't see it sustaining because at the end of the day, and I could be wrong, but at the end of the day, you've got to look at loyalty at some point.
I think that's got to play into it at some point.
The commitment to the school,
right?
And say, okay, I'm at Georgia Tech, and back then, they had us for 4 or 5 years. Well, you've got guys now that goes from LSU to Auburn to Tennessee and might end up at Texas A&M.
Sure.
Or something like that. Well, I can't understand. I know you have to, but I can't understand. And I give Brent a lot of credit, and I give a lot of coaches a lot of credit that do it the right way. But they have whole staffs
Right.
that are
Yeah.
just looking at transfers. They've got 5 or 6, 7 coaches that are just looking at transfers throughout the country the whole
Right.
year.
Yeah.
And
that's the world
you've
we're living
got
in.
to,
Right.
Yeah, but here's the deal: you better hit 100% because
Right.
that's you're banking on that could be 8-4 to 10-2.
Right.
Depending
Exactly.
on depending on what happens. And the only other thing that I see that it might hurt some teams is that how good is your second string quarterback?
Yeah.
Because your first string is going to be making $1+ million a year, if
exactly.
not more.
Driving a Lamborghini
how
or what
much
have
is
you.
your second string quarterback worth?
Right, exactly, yeah.
And what are you
That-
gonna
that
do
may be
for
a big
him
part of it.
to come in? Because
Sure,
that
yeah.
first string goes down, you're in trouble if that backup can't come in.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
So exactly.
There's just a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm taking the stance of it's been nice because last year I actually became a fan.
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't get upset and stay upset until Thursday if Tech loses or if Buffalo loses. I'm done with it that day.
Right,
I
yeah.
want them to win. If they win, great. If they
It's a 24-hour rule.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, that 24-hour rule is usually a 96-hour rule.
Yeah, well,
but-
hey, I feel you, man. I mean,
Yeah.
we come in here on Monday and we're still like, oh.
Well, yeah, and it's just,
so,
but I just,
I think the calendar, the recruiting calendar too, is something else that needs to change too.
Well, I think
that's
that
a
was
big,
the biggest
that's a big
thing, and I didn't
part of
say
it.
anything
Yeah.
about that. I think I saw one last game day show when they were talking about, the bowl games. People are
Right.
opting out of bowl games. It's, well, why have a bowl game?
Right.
If you do
Yeah,
that. Just
exactly.
have the
Yeah.
championships and throw everything else away.
Right.
And unfortunately, because the bowl games are not money makers except for the playoffs.
Oh yeah, and you've got teams opting out of them, and they're having to fill them
Right.
with teams that are under 500.
And my rule is, I think somebody said there were 8 or 9 teams that backed out. I would say, okay, you back out, you're not bowl eligible for 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
Playoffs,
Yeah.
you're not. You're
Yeah.
not.
That makes sense.
You're,
Yeah.
if you get picked to be a bowl, you play it. If you don't, you're out for 2 years.
Right.
And I think you got to punish them somehow.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Great take right there. Hot take right here. We promised you when we came on the air, hot takes, hot mics right here on the Morning Rant. And we got one this morning from John Davis, so we appreciate it, partner. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see moving forward how things go, how it's going to look. Those are things, ongoing discussions we're going to be having right here live on the program every morning and also on our social media. Hey, by the way, you can check out the Morning Rant again online at sportspigradio.com. Check out our Instagram at sportspigradio, and, of course, the Morning Rant on Instagram, and also SportsPig on Facebook and Twitter at SportsPig Radio. And we appreciate you guys being with us once again. Wednesday, Winging It Wednesday right here with Big John. We appreciate you guys being with us right here on the program. As we talked about, coming up over the next couple of days, we are going to dive into a little bit more of the Atlanta Braves, their lineup, potential starting lineup. We're also going to have some promotions, ticket giveaways. We're going to be live, by the way, next Saturday at the Shamrock Shenanigans in the Alley in downtown Jasper. We'll talk a little bit more about that and some of the other things that we have coming up. Earlier in the week, we talked about Wing and Rock Fest, and we're going to be there in a couple of weekends down in Canton, an event that draws around 20,000 people, and we are the official sports station of that event. Looking forward to it. John, man, I've had a lot of fun here today as we wrap up. Thanks for being with us, buddy, man. I'm so honored and thankful to have you as part of the show, man. Great job here on this first one.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap things up. Appreciate you guys being with us. Chuck Oliver coming up here at the top of the hour from 11 to 1 this afternoon. And then, of course, Rich Eisen live 1 to 3. And then Paul Feinbaum 3 to 7. As always, we appreciate it right here on the Morning Rant. We are the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the SportsPig app and online at sportspigradio.com. And as always, we say, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. We'll see you tomorrow morning.